welcome to Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary podcast. This is your host, Scotty B. My next guest is a former athlete, avid collector, and consultant, as well as cosplayer. His extensive collection of statues is amazing, so much so that he's been featured on the Batman Statue Collector YouTube channel, as well as creating the Comic Collectors Guild, also a YouTube channel, website, and podcast. He is tenacious, determined, focused, and also celebrates the geek culture. Please welcome to the show, Jake Fogg.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you here. I did actually just watch your YouTube on Batman Statue Collector. It's amazing. Really looking forward to talking about that in a little bit. But before we get into all the details and just everything about your collection and just what you do, going back and just looking at your origins and your cosplay origins. So
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about Jake and tell us how you got into cosplay.
absolutely. So I grew up outside of Washington, D.C., in Virginia. Grew up, actually on a farm. So the Superman thing kind of, rolled from being on a farm. But yeah, I grew up, on a farm in a small town and was about an hour south of Washington, D.C. So grew up playing sports my whole life. As you mentioned, I'm a former athlete. I played football all the way through school. Injuries kind of settled that. So, got into the workforce and been a consultant working for a management consulting company based out of Texas for a few years now. But yeah, I started collecting like these statues and whatnot about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And then recently into cosplay, I had been actually, it's funny, my friends and family all growing up, my nickname was Clark because I grew up on a farm and you can't see under the hat, but I've always had like the curl. So they were like, someday you should dress up as Superman and blah, blah, blah. So eventually kind of got talked into it. And I've always been a huge geek at heart, even though I was an athlete. I grew up even at a very early age, 3, 4 years old, I was introduced to like the Batman animated series. My dad's kind of a geek. So, early on showed me Star Wars and Space Ghost Coast to Coast and Batman 66. So that really started my love for these characters. And I've just been a huge geek ever since.
No, that's it's just very cool to hear. I love hearing more and more people talk about Batman the animated series because I'm a huge fan. I'm also a huge fan of Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
Also grew up with that. Um, One thing that you said before, and I know that yes, injuries can take their toll. I understand that too, having been in martial arts for a little while. But you have said that the grind doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of balance to everything that you do, the cosplay, training, work, your hobbies, and just really everything in between. Even though you're not an active athlete right now, how does the training and the discipline that goes into that really help you and help you with the cosplay? And how is it really still an important part of your day?
Yeah, so I think growing up, with an athlete, you get taught at an early age, routine and discipline, and that's part of the wonderful thing about sports is you learn kind of these life lessons. So for me, I'm kind of a creature of habit. I love having a routine in place, and even now, even though I balance, have a lot of things going on, I have a set routine. I wake up super early. I make sure I have my, set a time aside for hour and a half, 2 hours at the gym every day. And thanks to the cosplay, actually, I'm obviously right now you can't really work out too much, but knowing that you're going to be in a Superman costume, it kind of gives you something to shoot for, something to train for other than just lifting weights. You want to do the character justice and be able to look the certain way. So it's been really good in that regards. But I just have a routine and I stick to it pretty much every day. And yeah, that's pretty much how I balance everything. I just kind of have everything mapped out ahead of time and it helps me be able to navigate and be able to do all these things and find time throughout the day.
And it definitely shows that it's paid off. The consistency, and I always tell people this: consistency is key. Whether you're with whatever you do, whether it's cosplay or whether it's training or anything, you just have to do a little bit every day.
Yeah.
You certainly there's nothing really that you can do if you're a procrastinator in training. You can't run a marathon overnight. It's the same way with cosplay. You know,
Yeah,
if you wait till the day before, you're
it
gonna
ain't
have a
gonna work.
bad.
Yeah, it ain't gonna work.
uh,
Yeah, and like you said, it's 24 hours a day. I mean, people are like, I don't have. You can find time. I always found that there's plenty of hours in the day to find to do whatever you want to do, and whether it's making time for people or a hobby or whatever. Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, you need 6 hours of sleep, and if you need more than that, then sleep faster. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a great quote. So, yeah, just keep going and find time.
yes, and I do love Arnold, and he also has a few things he says about celery juice. Um, I think the saying goes, "Do what you hate," and get out of your comfort zone, things
Yeah.
like that. But one thing that I would like to really dig into, um, before we get too far, is your collection. And like I said before, you've been featured on the Batman Statue Collector YouTube channel very recently,
Mhm.
and you have this amazing collection. And actually, we can see some of them behind you.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
I was just wondering if you might like to give us a quick recap. Certainly, we'll have show notes going to the link to the YouTube video so that you can see more. It's like a 20-minute video, and I thought it was just really well done. And the models that you have, and some of the fandom that's expressed through just the different things that you had on that video were just awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a very fun and addicting hobby. So that was introduced to me, as I mentioned, about a year and a half ago. So funny enough, I had always grown up and I've had like art pieces. I see your amazing art pieces behind you, and figures, and started there. And I always had kind of said like it would be amazing if they had like these big statues of these awesome characters. Well, funny enough, I reconnected with a kid that I went to kindergarten with. His mom was actually one of my kindergarten teachers, and he lives out in San Diego, California now. So we hadn't talked for a decade or so, but we reconnected. And I saw on his page he had these huge, awesome like statues of Venom and Spider-Man and all these characters. And I was like, what are these amazing statues? Like, where can I get these? And he kind of gave me the rundown of, introducing me to like Sideshow Collectibles, Prime One, Iron Studios, Queen Studios, which are incredible companies. If you haven't seen them, just even if you don't want to buy these statues, just look at their pages. They have awesome stuff. So I got introduced and started collecting. It's hard to pick a few characters, but they're pretty expensive, so I try and be smart about it. I really focus on the characters that I love. So what I have now is I'm working on the Justice League. I get quarter scale pieces, so they're roughly usually between like 20 to 25, 26 inches tall. They're incredible. They kind of have their own unique twist on each character, so they're unique. And it's nice. They have payment plans, so you can make it work. But so right now I have the Justice League, and then I have the Avengers coming. I have a bunch of Marvel pieces on the way as well. So this wall behind me, you can see some of my Justice League characters, and then there's another wall like right here, and that's where my Avengers will come. So it's a growing collection. They're so fun, and the details unbelievable. So if you get a chance, YouTube, and I'll show you, up close and in the detail that go into these statues.
Yes, and they really are just spectacular. It's such a great piece, and it really does connect you with the fandom.
Yeah,
Um, I know that you're specifically, was it the first one that you collected was Superman?
yeah, yes.
And just the detail, and just how, I mean, even like the costume detail,
Oh yeah,
they put so much into it. Definitely worth checking out. And yeah, I mean, if it's actually something that you can model a cosplay after, and I know
and
people
I
have done
did.
that before.
Yeah.
And you, of course, you are a Superman cosplayer, inspired by the statue, and of course the character, and all of the art and fandom that goes into Superman. And of course, um, it is just really cool. I know you had a recent shoot with Ryan Sims, friend of the show,
Yes.
and you draw a lot of inspiration from the statue and just from Superman in general. Um, but would you like to talk about like just the influence of the character, and what got you going on your first costume, and like why you picked that particular
Yeah.
version?
Yeah, so as far as Superman, as I mentioned, even early on, I got called Clark through school, and I grew up on a farm. So for me, finding a character, he was, even though he's obviously got all these powers that all of us wish we could have, I related very closely to that character from kind of where he grew up with his parents on a farm, and he's from a small town, and he's just trying to always do the right thing, and I really related to him, even though I was introduced with and I'm a huge Batman fan, but this kind of the on a relation, being able to connect with a character, Superman was definitely who I connected to. So early on, I was like, okay, I got to do Superman. And I actually thought about starting with Batman, but all my friends were like, dude, your nickname's Clark. Like, you have to do Superman. So I was like, okay, cool. So I looked up, and, a lot of people, I wanted to have something unique and different than just other cosplayers. I know a lot of people are going to have like the Man of Steel suit. A lot of people are going to have maybe the Christopher Reeves original suit. I wanted a suit that was just kind of unique to me. So I got in touch with a company called Napier's Inc. Incredible company. They do a lot of different companies, and they've just been spectacular. So I kind of gave them a vision, and the inspiration was that statue. Actually, it's kind of, as I mentioned, Sideshow does their own twist on the character. So I would kind of describe it as a new 52 classic hybrid suit. It's kind of a mix of the two, and I was like, that's perfect. I mean, I've always been kind of a fan of the classic royal blue over the navy, but at the same time, the symbol's a little bigger. It's got like red details in the suit. So for me, I thought it would be a cool hybrid. And Napier's, they love being creative and kind of creating their own thing. So they jumped on board, and they took pictures of the statue, and they made it a reality with my suit. And I was blown away when I saw it. It's a little snug. I will give you that. It is a little snug. I might have overdid it a little bit at the gym trying to get to a certain size, but it's an awesome suit, and that's where I drew inspiration, and that's where the suit ultimately came from. It's a new 52 classic hybrid suit is the best way I can describe it.
Yes, and they can be quite snug. I know I've heard from Nashville Knight trying to get into one of his bodysuits, and it's kind of at least a two-man effort sometimes.
Yes.
It takes a lot of kind of wiggling around to make sure that you can get everything just in the right place and make sure you got the look down.
Yeah.
But again, the photos always turn out just spectacular. I think the effects are really cool that you've been able to add and integrate into a lot of the shots that you've done. And so skipping ahead just a little bit,
Yeah.
so you did the shoot with Ryan Sims. You had the
Yep.
suit all ready to go. What did you enjoy about that photo shoot? And how was Alex Ross part of an inspiration for that shoot?
Yeah, so for me, it was my first cosplay shoot, so I really wanted to start with, an awesome play. And I had seen cosplayers that inspired me, like Liz Wonder and, Nashville Night, Nashville Dark Knight, who I'm doing a shoot with Ryan with when all this fire stuff is all over, so I can't wait for that. But Saddle Up, I mean, just so many cosplayers I drew inspiration from, and Ryan had done a lot of shots for them, so I reached out to him and connected, and he's just an awesome guy. If anybody who's a cosplayer looking to have some awesome shots, I cannot recommend him enough. And it's going to be honestly hard to go to any other photographer after dealing with Ryan, because we had such a good time. But yeah, we connected, and basically we had a few months because I was waiting on the suit to get made and get ready. So we were like, okay, what do we want to do? So when I was talking to him, I actually had, you can't see it now, but on my wall I have that Alex Ross Superman poster on my wall. And I was like, man, like that would look cool. And we just basically started like a Pinterest board of famous Superman posters or comic covers or whatever it might be. And we were like, let's just recreate all these. So it kind of made the shoot very easy, because we would just look at the picture and be like, all right, do that pose. We're going to do this lighting. And Ryan did his magic. And that's what we did. So, but Alex Ross is a legend. I mean, his artwork is second to none. So we had to do Alex Ross. We did, I think, 3 or 4 of his classic Superman photos, and that's where we went. So we have some Jim Lee ones coming. We took, I think Ryan said we did like 234 shots over the course of the day. So there's a lot more coming.
Wow. Yeah, and we're looking forward to it. Definitely what we've seen so far has been spectacular,
Thank you.
and can't wait to see what comes. And I know it won't necessarily just be Superman in the
No.
future. I think you have a lot more planned. I saw a few posts go up recently. You were looking at maybe Green Lantern, or maybe just some different ideas coming up for different cosplays to do.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always variations on Superman. There's
Yeah.
the first one. It's always kind of like you get the first cosplay, and
Yeah.
that's the one that's near and dear, but it's kind of addictive.
Yeah. Oh, it
Once you get
is.
going, you're like, oh, I
It
have to do
is.
this one and this one.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I started, and I think Superman will always be like my go-to. I've, he's my favorite, so I'm gonna always do Superman. But I was like, it's funny when you do these posts, you start getting messages like you should do this character and you should do that character, and I was like, okay, like this is cool. And obviously, as a huge geek, like who doesn't want to be all of these characters? So the next character coming, and his suit should be here actually in about a week or two, is on the Marvel side. I'll be doing Captain America. So I'm getting a Endgame cap suit, and then I've got a lot of requests for Green Lantern. So I think down the road I want to do a Green Lantern, and eventually I'd love to do a Space Ghost because not a lot of people know about him, and it's such a unique character. So I'd love to bring him out of the ashes a little bit and do a Space Ghost. And Napier's is like, I'll do it. So it might be something down the road, but I'm always going to do Superman, and he'll always be my main. But yeah, so we got definitely some more characters coming.
Love Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and not just the original cartoon, but of course the kind of the parody that was done at the
Yes.
talk show with Space Ghost Brack and Zorak, just
Yeah,
some really
exactly.
fun characters.
Yeah.
But would you mind spending us a couple of minutes talking about your fandom for Space Ghost and just like what that means to you and like how you came upon it once upon a time?
Yeah, so my dad, as I mentioned, is, kind of a geek, and early on, I think he was a huge Space Ghost fan from the original Space Ghost show. So I think he's, as if you have a kid, especially at a young age, I would say besides probably like Spider-Man, he's a good character to kind of ease your way into the superhero realm, if you will, because he's got a lot of humor. Like he's not dark and brooding. He's very funny. It's kind of a goofy, funny. Hanna-Barbera, is the creator
Mm-hmm.
of her. So yeah, I was just introduced very early on because he was a huge fan, and then he's just really cool looking. I mean, he's kind of like a funny version of like Green Lantern meets Captain Marvel meets uh, comedy. I mean, he's a very cool looking character, and I've been saying for a long time if they just modernized him and they brought him into the modern, superhero realm, I mean, he would be so cool because he could fight with the Lantern Corps. He's got an awesome suit. He could be with like the Justice League. So I would love to see Space Ghost get a little more love and brought out of the ashes and make him maybe even more serious and things like that. But yeah, that's how it was early on. My dad was just a huge fan, and I was introduced to him. I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and I thought he was funny, and yeah, it's a great world.
And then yeah, I don't find him to be a very obscure character. I think that he possibly is just in the grand scheme of things. He's obviously not one of the holy trinity of DC, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman being kind of their bread and butter. But yeah, I always love what they do with the character, and got addicted to the old kind of talk show that they
Yeah,
had.
exactly.
So many good lines, so many good moments, and of course you can get the soundtrack too. They sing a lot on the
Yes, they
show.
do.
But you actually have a YouTube channel,
Hmm.
and if you wouldn't mind, certainly would like to spend some time talking about the Comic Collectors Guild
Yes.
and some of the members that you have, including folks like Tom Traver, Jake Ewer, and the Marvel and DC creator Joe St. Pierre, among others that are part of the group.
Mhm.
Please tell us more about the group. Love to hear about it.
Yeah, so the Comic Collectors Group is a group of people who are all across, the United States and the world of, people who collect action figures, comics, statues, cosplayers, there's artists. I'm an executive. I handle a lot of their YouTube and social media material. It's really started by two guys. Their name are Izzy and LT Flores. You can check them on Instagram. They're House of Geekery, and then the Comic Collectors Guild Instagram. But yeah, it's just a great organization of, there's so many groups out there. I'm kind of new to the groups and things like that, but a lot of them you have to, get pay for it, or they'll deny you if you don't have this like massive collection. Whereas they started this group basically saying, if you're a geek and you like this stuff, here's a platform of people that are like-minded that you can geek out with and talk about the latest Marvel movie or the last action figure that came out or comics. So it's just a really cool community. We're growing really fast. There's a couple hundred of us now. We just got put on Spotify and Google Podcasts. So we have everything from like statue reviews to countdowns of like top 10 superheroes or top, ranking the Star Wars movies, a lot of content across all kind of geek culture. So we just thought it'd be an awesome community. We're trying to grow as fast as possible. So if you are a collector or just a fan of some of these characters, you can go on our website. It's www.comiccollectorsguild.com. You put in an application. It's free. And really it's just a welcoming group of people that, are open to talking about everything and showing off your collection, and we'd love to have you. So yeah, you can check us out on our Instagram at Comic Collectors Guild, website, YouTube page. I'd appreciate any subscriptions there since I run that part, but yeah, it's a fantastic organization.
Yes, definitely check it out on YouTube. Check out the website. We'll have links in the show notes for sure, just so you can, if you do just like me, love the geek culture, love the cosplay community, and you want more of that, and you want to get into the collection side, the collector side of things, give it a look, check it out. Definitely just a good group of folks, and certainly I think there's a lot more to come too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we got some big things again planned, and we were hoping to having a booth this year at New York City Comic Con, but obviously I don't know if that's gonna happen or if there will even be a New York City Comic Con. But we definitely next year in 2021 we plan on having booths at some of the larger Comic Cons, so you can meet us, and it's gonna be great.
Oh, fingers crossed that they still have it this year.
I know.
I would love to see it there. Hopefully getting there myself this year too.
Hey,
But
there you go.
hey, 2021, I guess 2020 canceled.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we'll just go right through. Hey, 2021 it is. But thank you so much for coming on the show, for sharing the collection, for sharing your origin story, and just what you do, and everything that's gone into what you create in cosplay and what you create inside of the collector's universe and all the geek culture. It's so great that you have all this to share with us today. So
Yeah, I
thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much.
I usually have one question at the end that I ask of all of my guests. Same question for everybody. When you're ready to go, I will give it to you here.
Bring it on. Let's go.
All right. The question is simply this: what do you want your impact on the world to be?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always done a lot of volunteer work and stuff with kids and things like that. That's a big passion of mine. So I think using the platform of portraying a character, especially somebody like Superman, who's, his symbol is hope, and that's ultimately, what I want to do. I want to use being that character. If I can bring light or a smile to, a kid's face or an adult, just bring as much happiness and bring a smile, to people, and let people know that no matter how dark, things might be at times, that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and, be any part of spark to start that light as possible. So to me, it's just reaching out to as many people as possible and making them smile.
Absolutely, and it's very important. I mean, it means so much. We can never really measure just what sharing this with other people means sometimes, but that
Yeah.
is usually a pretty good affirmation when you can see that smile. You know you're headed in the right direction.
Exactly.
So, Jake, where can we find you, and how can we support you online?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at Superman14JF. You can definitely follow me on there. Feel free to message me anytime. I'm an open book, so I love talking with everybody. You can also subscribe again to the Comic Collectors Guild's YouTube page. I run that, so yeah, you can follow me on there. Leave a comment, let us know what you want to see, and I'd be happy to chat with you. But yeah, those are really the two platforms where you can find me the most, and I'd love to talk with all of you.
Oh, that is fantastic. Again, Jake, thanks so much for being on the show. And this is where we'll leave you, folks. This is Scotty B with Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary podcast. Thanks so much, and see you next time.